Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Seriously in Business podcast. I loved the discussion I want to share with you today. It's an interview with the beautiful Laura Canham, and she is kind of all about helping business owners create businesses that actually work with their life, and we're actually making decisions that empower the lifestyle we want rather than just letting our businesses overrun us. I really love this discussion. Obviously, she works a lot with mums as well, and obviously that's a big season that I'm in right now with a young family. And it's this idea that we can actually make decisions in our business that help to support the lifestyle that we want, instead of having to feel like we have to be on calls 24/7 or that we have to work 24/7, that we can actually work less hours but actually make the same amount of money because we're actually doing focused work, or we can work at certain times that support us. We can work at certain times that support our family, or we can have different seasons that look different all of the time, because that's what life is about. And so I'm so excited to share this interview with you, with Laura. If you don't know Laura, Laura is an award-winning business coach on a mission to help women do business their way. She has supported over 400 female entrepreneurs to scale with ease, increase their impact and income, and most importantly, create freedom, fun, and flexibility in life and business. She has scaled her online business from startup to $250,000 in just 2 years, while also birthing 2 babies. So she knows a thing or two about keeping things simple and getting big results. She's a proud boy mama, speaker, podcaster, and is currently in her digital nomad era, running her business while traveling Europe with her family. So enjoy this episode, and I can't wait to hear what you think. Hello, Laura. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
I am so good. Thank you for having me. This is a bit exciting.
I know I'm very excited. It's going to be great. Plus, I obviously love your accent, so it's going to be fun to just listen to that for a whole 20 minutes or whatever.
I love that. And I always forget, because when I'm with English people, they'll say to me like, "Oh, but you sound really Aussie." And then when I'm with like Australian people, they're like, "Oh no, but you sound like super English." And then I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it's nice
I'm
when people say they enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm just amazing in both of my cultures.
Exactly.
It's like a perfect anomaly. All right, let's get started. I wanted to ask you, which is this is going to be a weird question for you to answer, I feel. But what does an average day in your life and business look like? Like from the moment you get up to when you're going to bed, like how does life actually work for you with the business?
Oh, I love this. And yes, like every single day looks different. So I've got 2 kids, 2 toddlers, an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old. So, like, the morning is not your classic, "I'm just gonna get up and have a shower and get myself ready for work and, like, head off for the day." It is chaos on the level of everybody needs to be fed, everybody's cranky, everyone's still a bit tired, et cetera, et cetera. So the entire morning consists of just getting the kids ready, like first and foremost, and getting them fed and out the door. And then it's on me to kind of start my day. But one of the things that hubby and I have just started recently, which if people are listening to this and they've, also got kids and have a business, now that we've got 2 of them, sometimes it gets obviously super duper hectic in the morning. So we've divided up our mornings. So
Mhm.
we literally divide and conquer. So like every other day is my morning where I take care of the kids, and every other morning is his. So on the mornings I have the kids, obviously it's crazy and I have to get them to daycare and then I can start my day. But when it's not my morning, it's been so good because I literally get up, I sneak out of the house before anyone sees me. I go to yoga, then I like maybe go for a coastal walk, I go for a coffee, I go for breakfast, and then I come like back to my home office desk here and start my day. So like
Interesting.
little hack, it has been a game changer, I think. So instead of us both being stressed every morning trying to get the kids out the door, I get every other day I know is my morning to chill, and every other morning he knows is his morning to chill. And if you see the other person in the corridor, you have to ignore them, like they can't be roped into any of the jobs.
That's so wild. I'm gonna remember that hack. It won't always work for us, but I feel like every now and then, like if I just pick. Interesting. Does your husband always also work for himself, or?
No, he's a teacher.
Yeah.
So, like, fortunately, he has enough time in the morning to be able to take them to daycare too. So we know we can split that. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you know you can split that, I highly recommend, because although I still get the flexibility to do my own thing every single day, I actually feel a lot more like grounded, chilled, and do better work on the mornings where it has been slow and I
Mm,
haven't had to think or worry about like, have I packed their bags? Have I got everything ready? And that type of thing.
yeah.
So that's how it initially starts. And then it's typically me here in my humble home office at my desk, doing a mix of like content creation for my own podcast or content creation for some of my courses and programs, and then supporting my clients. So either like in Slack or Voxer or like via Zoom or things like that. And that's like typically it, unless I'm going to an event and then I'll go somewhere different. But I would say like 99% of the time I'm sat here in this chair. Maybe I go to a cafe and work every so often. I like to just shake it up. So it's weird, isn't it, how you work better in different environments?
Yeah.
And I actually work so much better when there's loads of noise going on. Not noise like my kids screaming, but noise like in
Noise
a
that you don't have to deal with.
yeah, like a shopping center or a cafe where it's almost like white noise and it's like all blurry and fuzzy. I get so much more done. So I know if I've got deep work to do, I might go and sit in a cafe. It's just a good excuse to like have breakfast as well.
I mean, that's true. I always feel too bad when I'm spending money. I'm like, I'm trying to earn money while I'm like working,
Yeah.
and here I am spending the money. This feels pointless.
I know. I'm like, is this eggs Benedict and coffee a tax deduction?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that.
But that's typically like how it works, which sounds like so boring, but I love it because it means that every day is different and ebbs and flows based on what I've got going on in life. And,
Yeah.
like having kids, some days I have to pick them up earlier to take them to a certain something. Some days I want to start later because I want to go to a different gym class or I want to go for a coastal walk with some of my friends. And that's just the perk, right, of running your own business is I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily tied to too much because I can book in my client calls and programs around like what I want to do, which is just the best. Like the flexibility is the best thing I think about working for yourself.
Yeah. I think that was one of the reasons. Like, I think I wanted to put myself for two reasons. One of them was so I could be a mum and be at home with my daughter most of the time because she doesn't go to daycare. And then the other one was how can I flexibly do, like, I couldn't imagine the idea of working for a boss and then saying, "Oh, you can't go have a coffee with your friend at such and such time." Like, I'm like, what? How does anyone have a say of my life? And so I've never actually worked for someone. And so I've been able to just do whatever the heck I want all the time.
So have you never worked for anyone ever?
The only other job that I've had, I did work 1 day a week for someone, but that was also flexible. It was pretty much just a contractor basis. But other than that, it was washing mugs and shredding paper at my mum's accounting office after school a couple days a week. So again, it was my mum's office. She was the boss there. I could decide if I didn't want to rock up one day.
Oh my gosh, I know, and it's wildly different, and I think that's why I was absolutely hell bent on never going back to my office job because despite loving that when I was in it, like that served that era of my life really, really well. Like I didn't have kids then, like it was fine. And I was fully obsessed with it and enjoyed it when I was there. But then after having kids and your priorities change, I could just imagine myself going back there. And it was a government organization. So there was so much policy, red tape, like everyone dictating the rules. And I like, from someone who's like a creative and has all these ideas, like we are as entrepreneurs, to go back to somewhere where you kind of feel creatively stifled. And I could just imagine me having an idea and someone being like, no, Laura, like this is the priority and we've got to change this debt. And I would probably have like flipped my desk
Oh,
and been like, I'm getting the heck out of here. See ya.
yeah.
You don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, what do you, yeah, like, and I feel like I'm not a, like, there's people that just like don't like being told what to do and don't like rules and don't like I don't mind rules. I like obeying when the traffic man tells me to walk and all those things. But like, yeah, this work thing, I'm like, nah, I can't. Like, it's my time. What are you doing? Yeah. So okay. So on that, I feel like so many times with our businesses, if we're not careful, it can still become that. It can still become this thing that we feel really tied to. What do we do about that? How do we make sure that doesn't happen in our businesses?
Oh, and it is like it's one of the biggest things, honestly. A lot of my clients are mums or want to become mums or are going from one baby to two or to three or whatever. And it's always the conversation that we have because if you're not careful, like if you keep operating on autopilot, the business just like consumes you and then you've created like you've turned yourself into another worker bee inside like another 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And like I know I did this for myself where I was just like cramming my day with too many things. And I suppose it's different for you. Like if you've never been in the corporate world, like so entrenched in that, it's probably a bit easier to not bring that corporate mindset with you. But I think like a lot of my clients and a lot of people in business have come from working from someone to working for themselves, and then trying to actually break the shackles of I must be sat at my desk for 9 and I cannot leave this desk till 5 is so hard. And it requires like a huge shift in your mindset and a lot of like conscious decision making to think I can still be productive even if I only had 2 hours today. I can still get enough work done in 4 hours today. Like I think about how much time I spent just wandering around my office when I worked for someone else, like making cups of tea, chatting to my colleagues. And I was like, Laura, probably the deep work that you did in that day was probably only 3 or 4 hours anyway. The rest of it was fluff. So I think breaking the mindset of like having to do that 9 to 5 is the first thing, and getting really comfortable with I can start my day today at 11 o'clock and it still count as like full-time work. I think that term like throws people a lot when they're like,
that threw me a lot at the start when I was working. I was like, this is a business and it's supporting me with a full time, like this is my only form of income, and it's doing me fine. But like when people are like, oh, is that your full-time business? I was like, I'm only working like 5 hours a day, but yes,
yeah.
does that count? Does this count as a real thing?
And it throws you because when you're making the equivalent to or more than your full-time income, it's just like, oh, well, it's like the full-time equivalent in terms of the cash in my bank, but the hours I'm doing is far less. And I think as a society, it's so drilled into us from school that you must be working this 40-hour week and you must have to work really, really hard to like create the lifestyle you want or make any money. And like breaking that as like an individual person trying to do it yourself like is really, really hard because it's a systemic thing. Like ultimately it's the belief that everybody is holding. So I think it's for you, if you find yourself doing this, you almost have to test yourself some days where you're like, I'm actually going to set an alarm and I am going to finish at 2 o'clock today because I don't want to miss out on my, my kids' assembly, or I want to go swimming at the beach, or whatever it is that you want to do. And I think the more you practice it and you flex that muscle, the flexibility muscle, the more it feels really good. And most people are creatives. If you're an entrepreneur, you're creative. You cannot do your best work if you are forcing yourself into these set time frames. Like honestly, I have my best ideas at 3 a.m. or in the shower or the times that I'm supposed to be quote unquote working at my desk. So it's about like, well, how can I make the business work for me? And sometimes if that looks like doing an hour's work in the evening because the inspirations hit me, but then the following morning starting my day later, then let's make that happen. So I think it's about your daily structure and routine, but it's also about prioritizing you and actually taking some time off and mapping that out in advance. Because I know that all of my clients, like me included, are so guilty of never taking the annual leave that we would take in our day jobs. And like in our day jobs, they gift you that at the start of the year or whatever. And I would literally book mine in advance. I would book it in accordance with the public holidays. So I got all the extra time that I could get. And I would maximize my time off and I'd bloody enjoy it. I would turn my phone off. I would never check my emails. But like, do we do that as business owners? Like, no. Like we'd go on the holiday, but we're 99% of the time like still like working in some capacity.
We've got our laptop always there. The emails are always up, and then you're kind of sitting like I went on a trip with my husband. It wasn't meant to be a holiday, so I'm not mad about it. But I just remember always feeling like because he works away a lot, and so the idea is that I can actually just come with him and work like I would at home, which was fine. But when we were there, I was like, I would like to go to this animal park with my daughter, and I would like to go to the beach here. And we just both felt so stressed all the time trying to, because we didn't actually set any time off properly. And it was just like, well, we're just working from a different location, which is cute, but we do want a little bit of time off here, and we haven't made that a priority.
Yeah, and it is so easier said than done. Like I'll always say that to my clients, that you got to do this, you got to do this. But then like I'm in that predicament right now, like planning for this upcoming trip. Like we're going to Europe for 4 months, and the whole idea is I've got an online business now. I can be a digital nomad now, but I know that exactly what you're saying in terms of this like feeling. I know that no matter how much work I've done and how much prep I've done to allow my business to support me while I'm there, it will always feel like a tab is open in the back of my mind for that entire 4 months. Even though I've got team members supporting me, even though I've batched my content and podcast episodes and I have set up new programs, I've done all of that stuff, but it's still your business. And I think
Yeah.
it's so lovely to be able to disconnect when you work for someone else. Like when you clock off at 5, you're like, see ya.
Not my problem.
When you work for yourself, it's very, very, very difficult to get your business to the point where you're like, I fully trust that it is all systems go without me and I can disconnect. But yeah, I reckon I could do that for a few weeks and then I would be feeling the pull to come back in. And I don't want to keep taking huge amounts of time off anyway, because I love my business and I love what I do. I know most people do. But yeah, having some systems in place and team members in place so you can feel content in taking some time off and taking a back seat is super helpful.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just becomes fully consuming and overbearing, right?
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember too, like if you don't have team members, that it's okay just to pause the business for a little while if you want to, like especially around Christmas time or New Year's, like everyone's stopping anyway, unless you're like a retail business and you can just stop and the business can just pause for a little while, and that's kind of okay as well. And like I guess giving ourselves permission that we can take time off and that's allowed to happen. We don't have to feel like we need to be constantly making money as well.
Yeah. And I love that because stuff happens in life. Like
Mm.
there's going to be times where this thing that you didn't plan or account for
Yep.
happens. So, maybe you get sick or someone in the family gets sick or like, just something unpredictable happens. And like my clients will be like, oh, but I still made the same amount of money that month. And I'm like, yes. And let that be a lesson that
Yeah.
the time and effort you put in advance, the consistency, the dedication, and the foundations you laid in your business can support you. Like, obviously, don't go MIA for like 6 months without without anything happening or without a way for an income stream to come in. But if there's a few weeks or a month or 2 months and you like have to just take a step back, like it will not suddenly fall apart just because you've
Yeah.
taken that step
Well,
back.
yeah. Yeah. 100%. And like I felt that with when I was pregnant, then my first trimester just threw me. I couldn't do anything in terms of like just tiredness. And the podcast just stopped. My YouTube just stopped. It just stopped. Like I didn't even say I'm going anywhere because I couldn't, because you don't announce you're pregnant yet. And I was like, well, okay, bye. But those months I still earned probably the same amount from all the, exactly as you say, the previous work that I had put into the business was still bringing in something. And so it was like, just take that pressure off sometimes, because yeah, otherwise I guess we're going to get burnt out if we feel like we've always got that pressure that we always have to be on, if life doesn't allow us to be in that season at that time.
Yeah, so true. And I keep talking to people about like the difference between easy business and an easeful business because I
Mm.
think everyone keeps getting caught up in this trap of everything needing to be easy, or they keep seeing people online, like other entrepreneurs who like are making out that everything is super duper easy. And I'm like, no, like it's not easy for them. What they mean to convey is that they have intentionally made things easeful. And the
Yeah.
way that you make things easeful is like what we're saying is by working on those systems in the background, making sure you've got some team members, making sure that your product suite is there to support you in case you do need to take a step back, and then putting in that, quote unquote hard work up front and making some of those trade-offs in terms of investing in systems and team and time and money and effort then holds you up in the times where you do have to take a step back. So like the ease comes, but it has to be intentionally created by you by putting in that foundational work first. And yeah, I think we see a lot of that online where these, millionaires and billionaires look like it's easy for them. And it's like, no, it's like never easy. Like they've still got hard days and challenging days, but they've
Yeah.
created ease now because of the work they've done to get where they are.
Yeah. And so like if we're feeling that like our business isn't giving us any of that kind of easefulness,
Mm.
how, like what are some things we should implement? Like you mentioned a couple of them just now, of implementing team or systems, but like at the very start of this, we might not have the budget for a team, and we feel like the way that our business is structured is not supporting kind of anything without us. What are some things that we can kind of do or think about to start that process of having a more easeful and business that actually supports our lifestyle rather than a business that's just overrunning everything?
Yeah. And I think the biggest and best thing that you can do is by like getting clear on exactly what it is that you want first. Because the reason most people's business feels like stressful instead of easeful is because it's either like just evolved, it's gone on autopilot and it's morphed into the thing that they weren't planning on building,
Yeah.
or life has changed for them. Some aspect of life has changed along the way and they haven't readjusted their business on the way, or they're trying to do things like everyone else is doing them rather than doing them in a way that feels fun to them, that feels aligned to their strengths, or that like suits this season of their life. So I think the first thing I would do is just actually work out, well, like, what do I want my life to look like and how can the business support this? What kind of capacity do I have to sell my stuff, market my stuff, support my clients, create my products and services, whatever that might be? And then how can I work backwards from there? So I always get like my clients almost to do this like a bit of an energetic audit on where they're at, to be like, cool, like what feels good and actually what parts of it feel forced. Because I think sometimes we think, oh, this business doesn't feel good now, and a lot of people will just like throw it away. Like that's why we see so many people in the first few years of business just give up, and you see them, they're thriving, and then a year later you're like, where have they gone? Like they've disappeared. And I think people are too quick to throw it all away rather than go, okay, which bits of it don't feel easeful? Because normally there's some pieces. Maybe it's the fact that how you've structured, supporting clients or doing meetings or jumping on calls, it's that doesn't feel easeful. Like everything else feels good. Like actually like creating your offers or creating your content or selling your stuff, that feels good. But I'll give an example. When I like first had Charlie, my firstborn, I was previous to having him, I was like a free agent, right? Like I didn't have to tend to the needs of a newborn. So I was doing a hell of a lot of work on weekends and on evenings. And I would do like back to back, like client calls or new client meetings or discovery calls or whatever, like all night from like 5 till 8, which worked, but it was just me and my hubby. So like that was fine. I kept doing things exactly the same because it didn't even compute to me. Like you're not going to have the capacity for
5 till 8 with with a baby or a toddler is like a worst time.
I know. And so like we know that now because we've been through it. But like if you've never had a kid before, you just think, well, they're kind of sleeping around the clock, aren't they? So why will 5 to 8 be different to like any other time of day? And so I just thought, well, this would be easy. Like I can do things exactly the same as I've always done them before. Anyway, that was probably the most stressful period in my entire business journey because I was like, it's witching hour. Like I now know that that's like the worst time ever. And I had committed to running all of my programs at 6 o'clock because that's when people had finished work. And a lot of my clients were startups. So they would want to attend my programs after work. So I thought I needed to do them in the evenings. So I was trying to feed a baby and put a baby to sleep whilst looking at the clock, watching the clock and getting more and more and more stressed, thinking, I'm going to miss the start of my group call. I'm going to miss the start of this call. And then obviously my baby can feel that I'm getting more and more tense and more stressed. He's now screaming and there's no way he's going to go to sleep. Anyway, this happened, for like an entire month or two. And I would like be bawling my eyes out before I went to go and support my clients. And I was like, this is not ease. Like there has to be a better way. So it's almost like finding the thing that's like the one thing that's like sending you over the edge at the moment, or just feels like energetically it's off. And for me, it was those calls. And I was like, cool. I'm now going to restructure how I do my business. So for this period of time, I don't have to show up live, because I've now realized that committing to certain times does not fly when you've got a newborn. Like it just doesn't. So I basically restructured my programs so that I could create courses for all my clients to tap into at their leisure. So they were still getting what they needed, and they could still get support from me, but inside like a Facebook group or Slack or whatever. So they still literally got the same level of support from me, but it then worked around my life and my priorities at the time. So I think once you're clear on the sticky, icky point in your business, you then almost have to keep asking yourself, how can I do this differently, but still get the same result like for my clients, and actually make things feel softer and more supportive for me. And whatever decisions you make, like whatever changes right then, that's not a decision you're making forever. That's not a full-blown commitment. And I think that's what people are scared of. They're scared of, and it's what I was scared of. I was like, oh, well, what will people think if I no longer do these live calls at 6 o'clock? And, like, am I going to lose clients and et cetera, et cetera? And it's just like, no, like I'm still getting them the same result. However, I'm now showing up as a better coach and a better mentor for them because I'm not a woman on the edge feeling stressed and upset that I'm letting my kid down and I'm also letting my clients down. So it's about getting creative and thinking how you can do that thing differently. And the choice you make has to be based on what's going to support me in this moment, in this season of my life. And that decision might only last 3 months. And then you restructure how you do it again. And I think people are afraid to pivot things and change things in that respect.
I just wanted to interrupt for a moment to say that if you're enjoying this episode, I would love to invite you to my free 3-part video training to help you to create your own stunning visual brand, helping you to grow your business faster and to feel and look $1,000,000. If you're ready for the best year of business yet, then join over 1,000 business owners who have already taken part in the challenge to get started on creating your own brand. Join us today at whitedeer.com.au/challenge. That's the color white, the animal deer.com.au/challenge. Cannot wait to see you there. Let's get back to the episode. I think so many times we just go along on autopilot, not questioning how we're doing things, and we just assume this is just the way I have to do things. And it's like, well, really, there's not that many rules in business. We can do whatever the heck we want. That's why we started a business. And so instead of getting caught up of like, oh, this is really hard and I hate this, it's asking myself of, can I change this? And most of the time the answer is yes. Some of the time the answer is no, or you've got to stick it out for a certain amount of time because you've promised that to someone. But majority of the time you can just change something. And I'm even thinking that with my own business right now. I was like, oh, is there anything that's a sticky icky point, as your word was, and that I can actually tweak because is it serving me? And like, I was even listening to a lady the other day talking about looking at the data in our business. And she made this great point of like, if it's not working, stop doing it. I was like, genius. Like, because sometimes we're doing things like it might be like posting like every day on social media. It might be pushing into this podcast that we've been doing for 3 years and it's not giving us any results. And it's like, why don't you actually just check if something's working before you stress yourself out over doing it 24/7?
I know. And it's so simple, but we're all just waiting for a permission slip.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for the person to go like, but like, how about you didn't do that? How about you change how you do that? And yeah, I think if you can get into the habit of like knowing that this should be a regular thing in your big business, like I honestly do this like every quarter is look for the sticky icky bits.
That's a great, you just like have a question on your quarterly thing of like, what are my sticky icky bits?
Yeah. And you almost have to do that. And for some business owners, maybe it's just once a year or twice a year. But I think for anyone that's a mother, and especially if their kids are young, my life every 3 months looks so different because all of a sudden I've gone from, like say at the moment I've got an 18-month-old. In 3 months' time, he's going to be full blown talking. He's going to be doing all this other stuff. He's probably going to be, in a different class at daycare. He's going to be enrolled in some extracurricular activity. So suddenly my capacity, the hours I've got to spend on the business is different. My priorities are different in terms of family. And the same if you've got like a newborn, like in those first 3 months, things are going to look different. All of a sudden, when they're like 4 months old, you're like, cool, okay, like maybe they're crawling now, maybe they're doing whatever. So in that initial stage, you can get away with just feeding them the bottle and putting them down and doing some work. But suddenly around 6 months, it gets harder because they're on the move and they're making noise and all of that. So don't be afraid to keep asking yourself those questions and changing how you do things and knowing that this just gets to be temporary. As long as I'm not destroying my client's experience, as long as I'm not not giving them the things that I've promised and they're still getting the result, you can do it any which way that you want. And in fact, I think your clients actually find it really empowering when they see you, prioritizing your life, but still supporting them because they're like, oh, that's a really good permission slip for me. Like I've now realized I probably need to do that. And I felt like I couldn't.
Yeah, that's so true. So if we probably, maybe I need to like pop into my like project management system, like every like 2 months or something of what are the sticky icky points right now, Jacqui? What's feeling really hard and how can you change that? Yeah, I think that's such a great question to ask ourselves. And like, how do we, like, do you have any tips around like if we are feeling like we like a change is almost going to be too drastic or too scary, what are some things I guess we can remind ourselves of if we are wanting to make a bigger change in our business to make that easier?
So more around the mindset stuff, do you mean? Or
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
because I
I
think
think
sometimes if we see, yeah, if we're like, oh, this does need to be changed, and I see that, but I don't actually know either how I'm going to do it, or everyone's going to hate me for it, or this isn't actually going to work, and my business is going to fail because I'm making a change.
Yeah, I think a few things. The first thing is like practicing those small 1% minute tweaks. Like if you get really good at just adjusting the small things as you go and you make it a regular practice, when there's something that does feel bigger, it then feels less daunting because you're like,
Mm,
cool, now I've got evidence. Like now I can prove to myself that I've done a few of these things before. My business didn't crash down, my clients didn't hate me, my income didn't drop, like et cetera, et cetera. Like you've got that evidence.
mm,
And I think also, like you were mentioning before, the importance of like stats and data. Like if you're actually tracking your KPIs and you know this is where my leads come from. If you've got an email marketing system and you can see who's opening things, who's clicking things, if people are enrolling in your programs or buying your services and you know where they've come from, if you've got all of that and you keep making these small tweaks and you still keep tracking it and you can see that it's made no difference, then again, that gives you the reassurance that it's safe for me to make this change. Like it's
yeah.
never going to feel good to make change. Like as humans, we just like, we don't like it. We like to just stick to what we're doing. But I think if you're so crystal clear on like the mission for your life and the flexibility you want or how you want things to be structured, and you can see that things are going in the opposite direction, you need to just kind of like hold on to that to be your North Star. And I think for me, like I had to put my happiness and like the season I was in, which was being a new mother, like I had to prioritize that over everything else at the time, knowing that I'm never going to make any decisions that like compromise my client's experience, but like, look at you. And so it's almost like making the call before it gets too big. It's
Yeah.
actually really hard to make those business decisions when you're deep in that spiral. Like I should have really made that call on changing how I was structuring supporting my clients before. But
Mm,
you quite often don't know what you don't know until you're in it. Like as a new mom, I didn't know that it was going to be like such a disaster. But yeah, if you can get comfortable with making small moves, that will give you the evidence. And if you can keep, collecting those stats and information and proving to yourself that it's not going to, change things drastically or whatever, then that will also give you the comfort to do it. But sometimes you just have to believe. And, we're making those small tweaks regularly. But I did this when, like, 4 or so years ago, I had like a wedding business and I was working in the wedding industry. And probably that's the biggest change that I've made to date was literally shifting
mm,
my entire business. Like I actually just ended up putting that business in the bin and starting this coaching business. And like that is, if people are in that position where it's not necessarily a small tweak in their marketing or a small tweak in their service delivery or whatever, if they're really feeling a pull to start something entirely new, because that aligns with this new season of their life, that is hard because you're like,
mm,
right, I've invested years in building this brand. I've got all of these followers on Instagram. I've got all these people on my email list. I've got all of these people who want to work with me. And it's like, I'm just about to go and put that in the bin. Like, but why? Like I'm leaving money on the table there. So it's almost about making your mission or your why or your goal for your life and what freedom and flexibility means to you, like making that bigger than this like one thing and
mm,
letting yourself know that there's a million and one ways that you can do that. Because yeah, I was literally putting a profitable business in the bin. And I was sat there thinking, surely I could sell this, but like it's got my name in the brand. So this is going to be really hard to sell this. But someone could take this and they have got a steady stream of, leads and everything like that. Everything's set up for them. But that was, that's a big decision. But you have to just think, okay, but do I feel aligned in this anymore? Do I feel happy? Do I feel fulfilled? Like, yes, it's making money, but is it ticking the boxes in terms of my happiness? And that's the thing that catches most people out, is they get so caught up in the dollar signs and the fact that it's making money that they'll keep doing something that they hate just because it's making money.
Mm.
It's
And
like,
that's not going to last.
no, it doesn't. And I think, yes, you then have to start your new business and build that up from scratch and whatever, but that's going to grow a damn sight quicker because you are so passionate about it, because it's playing to your strengths, because you're like all in on it. And nothing stinks more than a person who's in a business that shouldn't be in a business. Do you know, like, have you ever had that, you know, when you go and buy something from a shop or whatever, and the person who answers the phone is like so having a bad day, and you're like, do you love your job? Because you sound like you freaking hate it.
Yeah, that's so true.
And no one wants to buy from someone. Like, we can tell straight away if someone's like unaligned in their business, or they're over it, or they've given up or whatever. And I've made purchases before where I'm like, oh, someone's come to like sell me blinds for the house. And I'm like, I can just tell she's like not into this. Hey, like she's just not loving her job. And you don't want to buy from people like that.
No.
So although those decisions feel big and they feel scary, they're always going to feel scary when you're getting out of your comfort zone or making a change. You've just got to focus on like, why am I doing it? And for most people, it is to make sure that they're feeling fulfilled in what they're doing. You know, maybe there may be more opportunities for money. And ultimately for me, like my biggest goal is I want to get closer to the more flexibility, the better, to hang out with my family, but still do what I love doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And it's like, yeah, holding on to that reason of why you're making those changes to help you be like, actually, if I keep on, honestly, if I kept on going down that path, like if you kept going down that path of having those calls at that time, you would have got burnt out, resented your job, and probably stopped working. And now none of your clients would be getting helped at all, and your business would have failed. And it's like, that wasn't worth it. But making this change was, and that's made a business that is still thriving now. And it's like keeping the bigger picture in mind of like, yeah, why am I even running this? Like it's not just about the money, and how can I actually enjoy this work? And as you say, when you enjoy the work, then people can tell. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel sorry for people. Like, I won't buy from them because I feel sorry for them because I'm making more work for them because they clearly don't like what they're doing. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have to hire you or work with you or buy your product, but I do want it. But I don't want you to have to do more work to make my thing happen.
So true. And I've had so many experiences like that. And like there's nothing worse, because then you're just like, well, now I feel like I'm not getting the thing that I've paid for. And like now that person's reputation like is potentially damaged. You know what I mean? So you're better off pursuing the thing that you really want to do, rather than like forcing towards something that you don't. Like, and you cannot put money on happiness and fulfillment in your business. Like, if you're not enjoying it, if you're actually not getting a chance to showcase who you are and use your creativity to its fullest, like imagine in your business, Jacqui, if like, I don't know, you you couldn't actually like design stuff. You'd just be like, oh, that's literally why I built this business. Like, now I'm not being able to like do the thing that I actually wanted to do. Like, that's when you know, like, okay, something's got to change. But most people don't do that regular check-in, and most people let it like grow and spiral and just keep on this path of autopilot.
Mm. I think it's important to mention too, like at the start, you talked about easy versus easeful. And it's not to say that every single moment is going to be easy and fun and like walking on clouds, but it's kind of like, is the overall trajectory here something that's actually growing me and making me enjoy this work and this business, or is it something that I resent like 24/7? Because there's going to be hard days, and that's okay as long as it's not hard years forever because of one decision you could have changed of how a system ran or how you like did your work.
Yeah, so true. And there's a difference between like this being like a task that I dislike or a task that feels hard. So like if I've ever got to sort anything out with like my web domain, like I those tasks. And if there's anything I've got to sort out with my accounts, I hate those tasks. But it doesn't mean that like my entire business model like is a disaster and I need to throw it away.
Yeah.
Which is why like doing that exercise of like writing down like what feels really good and then what feels really sticky icky is actually nice, because then not only are you looking at the things that feel good, but you're also managing to do stuff with the stuff that doesn't. Because I think knowing what works is also as equally important. So I tend to look at what's working and then I'm like, cool, I'm going to double down on that. Like if advertising on Instagram is working, or if paid ads are working, or if these types of programs are working for my clients, let's do more of that. And then let's look at what's not working. Okay, like TikTok's not working, or this isn't working, or whatever, or this is taking up too much of my time. There might actually be something that is working, but doesn't fit in with what's happening in your life right now. And that's where people get stuck, because they're like, oh, but like Instagram is so working, but I don't have the time right now because my like kids are getting older and this is happening and that's happening, etc. So it's almost like what is working, but also what do you have the capacity for right now?
Yeah. And what you're just not going to resent everything for, and yeah, I think that's really great advice. Thank you. And so like if you were to give one like really great tip to kind of cap this episode off, what would you kind of want to share with people to encourage them along this kind of journey of making sure that I guess their life and their business are kind of supporting each other?
It would probably be around deciding what your bigger picture mission is, and like being really clear on that, and also knowing that that can also change and evolve, because I obviously had a big picture vision for what I wanted life and business to look like a few years ago before I had kids. Well, that's obviously now like completely different, and then it's changed again since I've had my second kid. But if you are so clear on what that mission is and what you're wanting to create in life. And I always say to my clients, like, what does freedom actually mean to you? Because a lot of people associate the term freedom like just with like money, and growing an empire means like more and more and more money. But to me, like my empire and freedom to me is that flexibility to live on the road with my family, to have as much family time and fun as I can muster, but also like sharing my gifts and talents and things with the world. And then when you're clear on that, not only can you set business goals to make that happen, like financial goals, and things like that, but you can also structure your business to make it happen. So you do this aligning and refining. But you also have like so much fun along the way. And I think it prevents imposter syndrome. It prevents all that other stuff. Like if you know what you want, I see people all the time do really cool stuff, and I have to check myself because my initial gut reaction is, should I be doing that? Or like, I'm feeling a bit jealous of their success with that. And all the time we see it, especially with social media, like we see people and their success stories every single day. And I almost have to like look at my vision board that's here, and I look at where I've written, what does, success mean to me? What's my mission? What do I want? And I'm like, that's so amazing for them. I love that they have just launched a product or whatever. Laura, remember, your mission isn't to launch a product or have a team of 100 people. This is what you want to create, and you're doing really well at what you want to create. And I think a lot of people get caught up in trying to create another person's version of success rather than like backing themselves and being like, I'm so proud of you for getting closer to your version of freedom and your version of success. So I reckon just get crystal clear on that, stay laser focused on that, turn it into a vision board, put it bloody everywhere you can, put it on your phone, put it on your wall in your office to remind you constantly, because, we do inadvertently compare ourselves to other people in business, and you don't want that to be a distraction, because the more things you see, the more derailed you'll get from like actually what you're trying to create.
Yeah, that's like epic advice. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's that's like, if you to summarize everything, that's kind of what it needs to all come back down to. And I think as entrepreneurs as well, we usually do get caught up in like, what if I want to try this and then try this and then try this? And it's like, you can try a couple of those, but are they aligned with your vision? And let's not get distracted from the main goal. So I think that's really clever. So if people want to connect with you or work with you or learn how we can kind of learn from you, how can we get in touch?
I hang out on Instagram a lot. That's where you'll find me. Love Instagram stories, love a good voice note, DM, and all the things. So you can find me on there. My handle is at Laura Canham _. I've got a whole bunch of different programs. I actually have a program specific for mums, and it is business strategy for mums specifically. So if you are wanting, to step into motherhood, if you have just become a mum, or maybe you're going from one kid to two or to two to three, it's all around this topic of like aligning and realigning what you're doing and actually looking at different ways to do that based on everything that obviously I've learned, but I've also shared with my clients. So there's a program for mums. There's also a whole bunch of other different programs, courses, and coaching spaces for women in business in general who just want to create more freedom and flexibility, and obviously financial abundance as well, because we're all for that. We all want to make the money as well.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so true. Thank you for sharing those. Those courses sound amazing. So make sure you jump onto that if you're interested in working with Laura. I'll have all the links in the show notes as well. So thank you for joining us today and sharing some of your story and some of your experiences, and giving us a bit of a kick up the bum too, to make sure that everything is kind of aligned and we're pushing towards that goal.
You are so welcome. It has been so good to hang out with you. And I'm just going to go get ready to take my entire family to Europe for 4 months. So let's do this.
Love it. So thank you for joining Laura and I. I totally recommend joining Laura's programs if you're kind of in that stage of like you can't work out how to make the business thing work for you and you can't work out how to make it work with your life. If you enjoy this episode, please make sure you give it a thumbs up or a review or a subscribe wherever you are and wherever you're listening or watching. I would so appreciate it to help this podcast end up in more ears of wonderful human beings. So thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next week for another episode. Bye.